Hi there. My name is Hassanan Albaker, part of the Platform Solutions Engineering team over at Box. And in this session, we're going to cover supporting remote work for admins using the Box CLI. One of the facets of the Box offering that many people might not be aware of is the Box CLI, or command line interface, which once set up can help you manage user accounts in bulk using something as simple as a CSV file with just a few commands back to Box. Let's talk about how. The Box CLI is a command line interface tool that can allow you to automate some of the user management tasks that you, as an admin, might need to do either as a one-off or on an ongoing basis. You can write scripts to do this, or you can leverage a CSV to help you take advantage of more batch-style operations. So let's start with setting up the CLI. You'll need to first create an application through the Box Developer Console. The easiest way to get started if you haven't created your first app already is by navigating to our developer resource page, developer.box.com, and selecting My Apps if you're already logged in. If you don't have a Box account, you can select the Sign Up button and get started from the beginning. Once you've navigated to the developer console, you'll be presented with a screen and an option to create your first app. Among these different options, we'll go with the Custom App. And as recommended by this, we would select the OAuth 2.0 with JWT. And then lastly, we'll give the app a name. In this example, I'll call it CLI Demo. Once you hit Create App, you can now start to make API calls against your account. You'll be presented with a developer token, but for now we can just skip that and hit View Your App. You'll want to make a few changes to the app configuration before we can move on. One such would be the application access. You'll want to change that to the enterprise settings so that you and your app can, once authorized, interact with you and maintain user accounts within your enterprise. Next, you'll want to review your application scopes to make sure that you can confirm what you'd like to manage, such as creating or modifying your user base. For example, we'll stick with reading and writing all files, managing users and managing groups, and enterprise properties. Once that's done, we'll select Save Changes over on the top right. And then after you've saved your changes, you want to scroll down to the Add and Manage Public Keys. Select Generate a Public and Private Key Pair button. Typically, you will need to go through a two-factor authentication process to get this authorized. But once you've done that, you will create and apply a public key to the application box. Thus, as a result, we'll download a JSON file with the private key and corresponding application configuration information. Make sure to save this file because you'll need to apply it to your setup process. Now you've got an app in Box and you have a JSON file to allow you to set up your application. Just a few more steps and you'll be up and running. One thing to keep in mind is you'll need to approve the app as an admin before you can start to manage the user accounts. You can do this by going to the General tab and choosing Submit for Authorization. Essentially, the steps behind this will send an email to the primary admin's email address, and that admin can approve the application. The next step here is to install the actual CLI. This link will take you to the installer for both Mac and PC, which you can also find within our developer documentation, so make sure to pick the appropriate one for your machine and go ahead and get started with the setup. Once you've got the CLI tools installed, you'll want to configure your environment to use the JSON file you downloaded previously as laid out in the demonstration. You can move the JSON file to a new home outside of your Downloads folder before you can run this. For example, I've isolated my JSON file into its own folder so I know where I can get to it for safekeeping. So to get started on adding my environment, first step is to log into my terminal if you're on Mac or the command line if you're on PC. All you have to do is type in the following command: box configure environments add, and then to make things easier, you can simply drag the file over to your terminal or command line and it will automatically apply the path. Lastly, I'll give it a name. So I'll do _name, and then I'll label mine test app. And now you should be all set. You can test this to see if you're able to connect by running just a simple command, such as box users : get. This will in turn return information about your service account tied to the CLI instance. If you run the command as box users, you'll get a list of all the users within your enterprise. The documentation laid out here has a complete list of all the commands you can run. Now that your environment is all set up, let's dig into the implementation of using it for managing users in your enterprise. Let's start with a scenario. Let's say you have a list of 100 users whose accounts you need to spin up temporarily to help support a new working from home initiative. You'll want to start by exporting the usernames and email addresses to a CSV file and keep that handy. In it, you'll want your header row to be name, login, and each subsequent row should have a user's name and their email address. Something like this would be an example where I have 3 users and 3 of their email addresses associated with each one. Using the CLI, you can easily create and manage user accounts that are needed to be spun up quickly and potentially later deprovisioned just as quickly. So to test, we'll input the following command into our terminal window. We'll type in box users :create, and then we'll refer to a parameter called bulk -file -path, and then attach the path to that file. So similar to the exercise we did with our JSON file, we can do with the CSV. Then we'll hit enter, and then as a result, each of our users will have been submitted successfully. An important output for future user management will also be to make sure you're keeping the user IDs handy. You could include different options such as --CSV to get the details for each created user in a CSV format, and you can also push this to a save file using the --save-to-file-path option as well, and it will automatically save an actual file for you. At the end of the day, when you run this, you'll get a bunch of user objects sent back to the terminal window and have created as many users as in your CSV in a simple and quick command over to Box. There are more switches and options available as part of this request, and I would encourage you to look at our documentation if you need any changes of any values for your new users away from the default for users within your enterprise. And there you have it. Just like that, you've spun up accounts for all your users that need to work from home to support the new initiative. Hold on to those new user account IDs, as we'll need them here in just a moment for future exercises. In regards to where to reference the new user account IDs, for the sake of the demonstration, we could refer back to the response we got in the CLI and look for the ID for each account that was added. For example, if we were to take a look at one of the users that was added recently, we can take a look at the ID just above the name for each user that was added. If instead you were to use the --CSV or --save to file path parameters in your bulk add command, you could instead reference either of those for quick and easy access in its place. So let's say we assume that this is just a temporary state of affairs, and ultimately you'll need to migrate their content to a new user, if they own any, and deprovision those accounts. You can do it again using just a few bulk requests through the Box CLI. The first thing we need to do is move any content, assuming we need to keep it, that is owned by a temporary users. Our objective would be we would need to have a list of all the temporary users' IDs and the IDs of the account that we want to migrate their own content to. In this scenario, let's say we want to migrate all of the content coming from the users we just provisioned. What I've done on my end is captured each of these user IDs mentioned earlier and apply them to a new CSV that will start with the newly provisioned user ID on the first column and an ID of the user that we're transferring it to over to the second column. And just to be clear, it doesn't have to be a single user, it can be transferred to multiple IDs. And in my case, for this example, I will be using the admin account of my Box Enterprise. As an example, here's the CSV file that I have formatted myself. As you can see here, we've got all of our new users listed on the user ID side and a single admin account listed on the new user ID side. In this case, each of the user's root folders will be moved to this admin account, so any content that they own won't be deleted along with the accounts. So to run the CLI command, it should look something like this. we'll go with box users transfer content, and then we'll follow the path line. So it will be bulk file path. And again, we'll reference the file just by dragging and dropping and hit enter. Once successfully completed, you'll see all of the content had been transferred successfully, and you should now see it in the new ID that had been transferred to originally. If we've migrated content or don't allow root content ownership, the following command can take care of those accounts. Box users delete bulk file path. Again, reference the file, drag and drop, and hit enter. Let's say you run into an error instead of a successful response that says there's content that lives within one of these users' directories. In that instance, it wouldn't automatically delete the user, but instead keep them in place. If you're not interested in holding on to those users' data, you could instead run a similar command just with an additional parameter. In this case would be box users delete force, and then bulk file path with the same procedure. Once that's done, it will automatically delete said folders and that user altogether. And there you have it. A few simple commands and you can bulk manage your users. You can create users in Box quickly to support your temporary work from home initiatives, and then again later remove them at ease. Remember that all of the commands that we've demonstrated here today can easily be referenced in our Box CLI documentation with support on various commands and how they can be best utilized for your enterprise. Thanks for watching. Stay safe and stay healthy out there.